The call came in at 0317, and the ER was already bleeding. Not metaphorically. There was actual blood on the floor near Bay 4, a trail of it from the ambulance doors to the curtain that nobody had mopped yet, because the night crew was down 2 aides and the charge nurse had been on the phone with administration for the past 40 minutes arguing about staffing ratios. The monitors were beeping. Somebody's family was crying in the waiting area. A drunk man in Bay 2 kept asking where his shoes were. Nurse Dara Quinn stood at the supply cart outside Bay 6 and counted saline bags. That was her job. That was what they'd hired her to do. She counted the bags, logged the numbers into the tablet, and moved on to the next cart. She'd done this same circuit 4 times in the past 3 weeks. She knew exactly where every shortage was, exactly which attending liked which brand of surgical tape, exactly how many packs of 4x4s trauma one went through on a busy Saturday night. She knew because she paid attention, because she'd spent 12 years in situations where not paying attention got people killed, and old habits didn't retire just because the uniform changed. She was wearing scrubs now, dark blue. Her name badge said Quinn D, and under that, in smaller letters, the charge nurse, Hartley, walked past without looking at her. That was also routine. Dr. Osi had hired her 6 months ago. He'd read her application, seen the nursing credentials, the years of experience, the 2-line gap that said simply military service. He'd shaken her hand across his desk and told her they were lucky to have someone of her caliber. Then he'd handed her off to Hartley for orientation, and Hartley had looked at her the way people look at someone who showed up to a black tie event in the wrong shoes. Cool. Assessing. We have a structured system here, Hartley had said. Everyone starts somewhere. Dara had started in supply. She hadn't argued. She'd learned a long time ago that arguing before people trust you is just noise. You show them. You wait. You do your job so well that eventually the question becomes impossible to avoid. She was still waiting. Bay 4's curtain snapped open, and Dr. Lessing came out moving fast, the way attendings moved when something had gone sideways, and they didn't want anyone to see it on their face yet. He was young, maybe 32, good hands, the kind of doctor who was excellent in controlled situations and occasionally lost his footing when the floor shifted. The floor was shifting now. Quinn. He almost walked past her, then stopped. You have epi back there? Cart 3, second shelf, behind the saline. How many you need? He was already moving. I'll get it, Dr. Lessing. She kept her voice even. What's in Bay 4? He paused. Turned halfway. Penetrating chest trauma, GSW. We're managing. Is the bleed controlled? Something crossed his face, not irritation, something closer to the particular discomfort of a person who knows they're in over their head but hasn't admitted it yet, even to themselves. We're managing, he said again, and went for the cart. Dara went back to counting. She counted 3 more bags before she heard the sound that changed everything. It was a sound she knew the way she knew her own heartbeat. Rotors. But not a standard med-flight pattern. This was lower, more deliberate. The particular cadence of military-grade birds descending in formation rather than the single-ship meander of a civilian helicopter. She'd spent 4 years listening to that sound from 100 different rooftops and forward operating positions. You didn't forget it. It lived somewhere behind your sternum. She set down the tablet. Through the narrow window at the end of the hall, she could see the rooftop pad. 2 shapes against the night sky, blacked out, no civilian markings. What is that? One of the night aides, a young woman named Pollard, had stopped in the middle of the hallway and was looking up at the ceiling like the sound might explain itself through drywall. Go find Hartley, Dara said. Is that? Find Hartley? Tell her we have military inbound. Pollard ran. Dara walked to Bay 4. Dr. Lessing was at the head of the bed working. His resident, Chung, was at the chest. The patient was a male, maybe 40, the combat age, the kind of body that said years of physical discipline even through the damage. The wound was bad, lower right chest, entrance and exit accounted for, but something wasn't moving right. She could see it in the way Lessing's hands kept adjusting, searching, not finding the purchase he needed. Quinn. Hartley appeared in the doorway behind her. What are you doing in here? I need to see the patient. Your supply. You don't have a clinical. Hartley. Dara didn't raise her voice. She'd never needed to. 2 military birds just landed on the roof. They didn't file with air traffic. They're coming here. A beat of silence. So whoever is in those birds is coming for this patient. And this patient is about to code if somebody doesn't deal with the tension pneumo that Dr. Lessing is about to find in approximately 45 seconds. The room went still in the particular way rooms go still when someone says the thing everyone else has been circling around. Lessing looked up. How do you? He started. Tracheas deviated, left side. Breath sounds are absent. She was already moving to the bedside, not taking over, just positioning herself where she could be useful. I'm not saying I'm right, I'm saying check. He checked. He found it. What happened next happened fast, the way real emergencies always did. Not cinematic, not clean, and everyone moving to their assigned position. Except Dara didn't have an assigned position. She handed instruments before they were asked for. She read the monitors and said numbers out loud at the right moments. She put her hands exactly where they needed to be when Lessing's resident couldn't get the angle. Nobody told her to stop. The patient stabilized. Lessing stepped back from the bed, breathing through his nose, and looked at her with an expression she recognized. She'd seen it on faces in the field, on the faces of people who'd just watched someone do something they didn't have a category for yet. "Quinn," he said. "He needs imaging. The exit wound tells me the round may have clipped the lower lobe. He's stable enough to move, but you've got maybe a 20-minute window before that changes." "How do you know that?" She didn't answer. The doors at the end of the hall opened. There were 4 of them. Full kit, tactical gear, the particular posture of people who operated in environments where hesitation was a liability. They moved through a civilian hospital the way water moves around rocks, efficiently, without apology, scanning everything. The one in front was a woman close to Dara's age, with a jaw like a blade and eyes that had seen considerable amounts of the world's worst moments. She stopped at the nurse's station. "I need to speak with the charge nurse." Her voice was flat and professional and left no room for interpretation. Hartley stepped forward. "I'm the charge nurse. Can I help you?" "We have a man inbound from extraction. GSW, secondary blast injury, but we've got concerns about internal. We requested a specific nurse for receiving." She pulled a folded document from her vest and set it on the counter. "Name is Quinn, Dara Quinn. We're told she's at this facility." The hallway was very quiet. Hartley turned slowly. Dara was standing, Fifth Coordinator scrubs, a saline bag in her left hand from when she'd grabbed it off the cart on her way into Bay 4. The woman from the helicopter looked at her for exactly 1 second. Then something shifted in her face. Not surprise, not relief exactly. Recognition. The kind that goes bone deep. "Ghost?" she said. Dara's expression didn't change. "It's Quinn now. It's whatever you want it to be." The woman crossed the distance between them without looking at anyone else in the hallway. "We've got Reyes coming in. Blast injury plus secondary GSW to the abdomen. He's been asking for you since the LZ race is alive. He will be if we get him through the next hour." "How long out?" "Birds on approach. 90 seconds. Dara set down the saline bag. She looked at Hartley, who was standing at the nurse's station with the expression of someone trying to reorient a map that had just been handed to them upside down. "I need trauma 1, Dara said. "I need Lessing and I need a second attending if you have one available. I need Oneg on standby and I need someone to page Dr. Osi." "You're a supply coordinator," Hartley said. The words came out the same way they had for 6 months, automatic, reflex. "Hartley." Dr. Lessing was leaning against the doorframe of Bay 4, arms crossed, watching. "Let her work." Hartley looked at him. He didn't move. "She just walked a patient back from the edge in there," he said quietly, without her name on a single order, without asking for credit, without explaining herself to anyone. He paused. "So, unless you have a specific clinical objection, I'd like to hear what Quinn needs." Hartley said nothing. She stepped aside. Dara moved. She knew where everything was. She had spent 6 months making sure she knew exactly where everything was, had cataloged and restocked and mapped every corner of this supply system, like someone who understood that in the moment it mattered, the 3 seconds it took to find something were 3 seconds a person might not have. She pulled what she needed. She set the room up in a sequence that came from years of field medicine, the logic of it different from civilian protocols, but not wrong. Faster, leaner, focused on the interventions that bought time rather than the ones that looked thorough. The military woman, whose name Dara had not yet offered to the room, watched all of this without comment. One of her team members posted quietly near the door. Not blocking it, just present. A reminder that the world outside this hospital was also real and also watching. Reyes came in at 0341. He was bigger than she remembered, or maybe it was just the way the years looked on a person when you hadn't seen them since a hillside in a country that had taken something from both of you. He was conscious barely, his eyes opening when the gurney rolled into the light. "Ghost," he said. His voice was rough, used up. "I told you not to call me that. Did it work last time?" "No, then I'm not stopping." He coughed, winced, looked at the ceiling of trauma, one with the philosophical resignation of a man who had been in bad situations before and had learned that fighting the situation itself was a waste of energy. "Am I going to make it?" "Probably." "Probably. You want me to lie to you?" He almost smiled. "Then probably." She worked. Lessing worked beside her, and she noticed, with a part of her mind that was always watching, always cataloging, that he had good instincts when he wasn't second-guessing himself, that he moved well in a room with someone who knew what they were doing. She gave him directions the way she gave all directions, quietly, without preamble, and he followed them the way a person followed directions when they trusted the source. At one point he looked up at her across the patient and said, "You've done this before?" "Yes, a lot, yes." He nodded and went back to work. Reyes went into surgery at 0417, stable enough, The attending who took over in the OR had been briefed and knew what he was walking into. Dara had made sure of that. She walked out into the hallway and stood next to a wall for a moment, just breathing. The military woman was waiting. Of course she was. Lennox, the woman said, which was her own name. Captain Nadia Lennox, though she didn't offer the title. She extended a hand. Dara shook it. It's been 4 years, Lennox said. 3 years and 8 months. You've been here the whole time. A few months. Lennox looked down the hallway at the ordinary chaos of a civilian R in the small hours of the morning, at the aide mopping up A4, at Pollard restocking a cart with shaking hands, at Hartley standing at the nurse's station with her back very straight and her eyes on her computer screen. They know what they have here? Lennox asked. Dara followed her gaze. They're getting there, Ghost, Quinn. A pause. Quinn. Lennox said it like she was trying it out, seeing if it fit. Reyes talks about you. He talked about you the whole way back. Kept saying, if we can get her, we can get through this. Said you pulled him out of a burning vehicle in 2019 while the secondary explosions were still going. I had help. He said you threw him over your shoulder. He's dramatic. He weighs 220. Dara looked at the floor. He was closer to 215 at the time. Lennox made a sound that was almost a laugh. Then she was quiet, in the way of someone who had something to say and was choosing the order of words carefully. There's a program, she said finally. Joint Civilian-Military Trauma Liaison. They're embedding people in major metropolitan ERs, people with field medicine background, to build protocols. 2-year commitment. You'd be consulting on cases, training staff, helping design the handoff systems between field care and civilian hospitals. She reached into her vest again and came out with a card which she set on the supply cart beside Dara's hand. It's not the same as being back, but it's not exactly this either. Dara looked at the card. She thought about the saline bags, the inventory logs. The way Hartley had looked at her badge every morning for 6 months, seeing only the job title and not what was underneath it. She thought about Reyes asking for her by name from the back of a military transport. The way Lessing had stood in that doorframe and said, let her work. The way the room had changed shape the moment she walked into it with a purpose. She thought about why she had come here in the first place. Not hiding, exactly. She told herself it was healing. Quiet. Giving herself time to relearn what civilian life was supposed to feel like. And there had been something to that. There had been mornings when the counting of supplies had felt like a kind of grace, the profound ordinariness of a job where nobody died if she lost count. But the attending, she said, Lessing. If I took this program, he'd need someone to cross-train him on field triage protocols. He has good instincts. He just needs the framework. Lennox blinked. Is that a yes? That's a condition. I can make that work. And I want a clinical title, not supply coordinator. If I'm building protocols, I need a seat at the table, not a cart in the hallway, also workable. Dara picked up the card. She looked at it for a moment, then put it in the pocket of her scrub top next to her name badge that said Quinn D. I'll think about it, she said. You've already decided, Lennox said. Dara didn't answer. She walked back toward the supply cart, picked up her tablet, and went back to counting. But something was different now. The hallway felt different. Not smaller, not larger, just more accurately sized. Lessing was writing notes at a workstation a few feet away, and when she passed, he looked up and nodded, the particular nod of a colleague, not a stranger. Pollard was at the end of the hall and gave her a look that contained something new, something that had not been there at the start of the shift. Hartley didn't look up from her computer, but later, just before 600, when the morning crew was arriving and the night was releasing its grip on the building, Hartley appeared at the end of the supply hall. She stood there for a moment. Dara kept counting. Quinn, Hartley said. Dara looked up. Hartley's expression was complicated. Years of charge nursing had given her a face that knew how to stay controlled, and it was staying controlled now, but underneath there was something working its way to the surface. Good work tonight, Hartley said. She said it stiffly. She said it like the words were heavier than they should have been, but she said it. Dara looked at her for a moment. Thank you, she said. Hartley nodded once and walked away. Dara watched her go. Then she turned back to the cart. She logged the last of the inventory. She filed the report. She clocked out at 061, 6 minutes late, which she noted in her timesheet with the same precision she brought to everything. Outside, the sun was just beginning. The parking lot was quiet, the morning shift's cars starting to fill in the spaces the night shift was leaving. She stood next to her car for a moment, keys in hand, and felt the tiredness settle into her now that there was space for it. Her phone buzzed, a text from a number she didn't recognize, but the area code told her enough. Reyes out of surgery, stable. He wants to know if you're coming back tomorrow. She looked at the message for a long time. Then she typed back. Tell him probably. She got in the car. She drove home through a city that was beginning to wake up, through streets that were learning the new day the way they always did. with traffic lights changing colors for nobody, and coffee shops unlocking their doors, and people walking dogs who looked like they were solving important philosophical questions with each step. She had a name here. She'd built it quietly, the way she'd built most things in her life, by doing the work and letting the work speak. It was speaking now. She pressed the button for her garage, pulled inside, sat in the car for a moment in the dark. Then she picked up the card from her pocket and turned it over in her hands one more time. It had her old call sign printed in small letters at the bottom, someone's idea of a detail or a joke. Or maybe just the truth finding its way back into print ghost. She set it on the passenger seat. She got out of the car. She went inside and made coffee and stood at her kitchen window and watched the light change on the street, the ordinary miracle of another morning arriving right on schedule. She already knew what she was going to do. She'd known since the moment she heard those rotors. She just liked to give herself the grace of sleeping on it first.